Hey, welcome back to my channel. So a little while ago I bought a little 15-watt laser and I struggled to be able to figure out kind of how to use it. And when I did figure out how to use it, it was pretty awesome for the price, but definitely came with a few limitations. And so I recently upgraded to the 20-watt laser, and I just want to share with you my experiences with it with the first weekend of using it, and hopefully help any of you who might be a little bit technologically challenged like I am, and being able to figure out how to at least be able to do some basic engraving and cutting with a laser. So you can see that I have my old laser sitting inside of the new laser. I do really like how small and portable that little laser is, so I will definitely keep it. It's great if you need to actually just take it, to a different location. But the larger laser gives me a much bigger engraving space. So the larger laser is 16.9 inches by 15.75 inches for the actual cutting and engraving space, which is 430 millimeters by 400 millimeters. And the smaller 15 watt was substantially smaller, but the engraving space was 6.3 inches by 5.9 inches, or 160 millimeters by 150 millimeters. Both of my lasers are the Ortur brand, and they are shipped directly from China. I purchased them from GearBest. The 15 watt cost about $200 and the 20 watt cost about $300. You can also purchase these on Amazon, but they will cost you like an extra $100. You will get them much faster though when it's coming directly from China. I think I waited close to 3 weeks for both of the lasers. Both lasers were very well packaged, but the assembly instructions were definitely less than desirable. So you want to watch a few YouTube videos before you try to assemble this laser. The 15 watt laser hardly required any assembly, so that was actually a really nice feature for it. Okay, so I've turned the laser on for the first time and I've loaded my logo, and I'm just going to see if I can focus the laser. On the 15 watt, you just spin the little laser head and you try to get a pinpoint dot. Well, I realized it doesn't spin on this model. And I guess they sent me the 2021 model. They didn't even update the paperwork for it. So at this point, I have no idea how to focus it. So I do a little research and figure out that this little aluminum chunk that came with it, if you just loosen up the laser, lift it up, put the aluminum under it and tighten it, then it will be focused. It actually works really well. It's more consistent than trying to just get a little pinpoint. So it's actually a really cool feature. First burn that I'm going to try to do here is on African mahogany. This is the wood that I had the most consistent success with the 15 watt laser on. I really struggled to be able to get a good burn on some of the more dense lumbers like hard maple or something. So I'll show you an example of that. This laser actually does totally fine with that, but I'm running the same settings as I did for the 15 watt laser, and I notice right away it's burning deeper than I want it to. So I'm going to actually change the settings up a little bit, and I'm going to show you exactly how you can change your settings. And now I'm running it with a little bit less power and have the laser moving a little bit faster, and we're going to get a really nice burn. You'll notice I'm also toggling around and checking my sprouts order. So as long as you have this running in the background, you can continue to use your computer. All right, it's just about done here. All right, look at that. Absolutely perfect. My goal is to not overwhelm you with possibilities of what you can do with this laser. I want to show you just the bare bones, what you need to know in order to be able to do something with this laser. There are plenty of really tech-savvy, really smart people out there. That is not an area that I excel with at all. So this is the Laser Gerbil free software that comes with the laser. And so from here, we're just going to go File and Open, and then the next screen is going to show the image that I opened up. So on this screen, you see my logo off to the side with the setting that I typically use, but you can do line-to-line tracing, and you'll see that it's showing diagonal lines, and you can look at it as horizontal or vertical. And then the quality, the 10 lines per minute tends to be pretty good. You can increase that all the way up to 20 lines per minute, but then it will take twice as long. The vectorize would give you an outline, and center line doesn't make any sense for this, but when we're going to cut out a circle later, we will use that center line. So I really like this when it burns more like dots. So once we have the look that we want, then we're just going to press next and you're going to get to this screen. Now on this screen, there's a few important things. The engraving speed, 3000 millimeters per minute, is your maximum speed. So that's what you'll be using primarily for in most engraving. But if you're cutting, you might be down to even 100 millimeters per minute, depending on what you're cutting. And then the S max is the power. So 1000 would be max power. So right now this would be at 80% power. And then the size is in millimeters. So on this logo, I have it set at 55 millimeters. So it's going to be roughly 2 inches, and it's going to automatically figure out the height if you put in the width, or vice versa. If you put in the height or the width, it'll figure out the height. You click on the icon that looks like a little book, that will give you a material database, and that gives you a really nice starting point for different materials, what their speed should be and what the power setting should be. So you're able to just kind of click around and change, like plywood if you're cutting it versus if you're engraving on it, and the thickness of that plywood. It'll tell you what the speed should be as well as the power. So you have a whole different list of items. So for leather, again, engraving versus cutting, you can see the dramatic difference there. So you can just play around with that database. So once you push create, then you're going to go back to the regular Gerbil screen here, and you'll see that logo. I'm going to unlock the screen, and that's going to give me these buttons. So see, if I press that button, that's when I get that little outline to see exactly where I'm cutting. So I'm just going to show you what all of these different buttons do. First, I should note that before you even connect, you have to actually turn the laser on. Once the laser's on, then you're able to connect. This first button is pretty self-explanatory. It's the unlock button. This button emits a low power light, so it's not going to burn anything that you're doing, and that's that focus light. So again, if you have the kind of laser that you have to twist, you're going to try to get a fine little pinpoint out of this, otherwise you'll get a blurry image. Even with the kind of laser that I have now, it is helpful to be able to see that and just assure that you are in focus. The map location looking button is the button that's going to give you that path to show you exactly the area that you will be engraving on your material. This home button will send your laser back to its home position. These are toggle keys that let you move the laser all around so you can find where you want to be starting from, and the home in the middle will take it to its current 0 point. The bar on the side, you can actually make it take bigger increments or smaller increments until you get it just to exactly where you want it to be. I think this is about the most important button. This resets your 0 point. So if you got it to the perfect position and then you think you're good to go and you press play, it's going to start burning back wherever the original 0 point was. So you have to reset 0 once you find the exact location that you want it to start from. The play button is how you're going to actually start the laser, and I highly recommend that after you click the play button, you move the cursor off the play button while it's doing its engraving. Unfortunately, more than once I've come back, and my computer's fallen asleep, and when I go to just kind of move it to wake it up, I end up hitting the play button again, and it will start engraving again, even if you don't have any materials underneath it. So just as a safety, mechanism, just get in the habit of moving that off, because it's 1 click to start it, and then it's actually 2 clicks to stop it. So if you hit the stop button quickly, it's still going to come up with another screen. Do you really want to abort this project? And then you have to move the cursor and click that. All the while, it can be engraving your workbench or whatever it is over. The other buttons are kind of luxuries. They can quickly send it all the way to one corner or the other corner instead of toggling through. I've never actually needed them, so I think they're luxuries. You can play around with them, but they're certainly not necessary in order to get started engraving. So once you press play, you'll see the cursor moving, and that's following the path that the laser is currently taking. On the left-hand side, that is all the G-code going by. Now, I know absolutely nothing about G-code, so again, if you want a really technical explanation, you can find a lot of really smart people on YouTube. Okay, so let's have some fun with some different materials. So this is some leather that I pulled out of an old couch, and so it was kind of like a shiny surface on top, but kind of a suede underneath. So we're going to try to burn into the suede side of this. And so I'm going to tape it down. You want a really nice flat surface, so the painter's tape seems to hold it pretty well. And again, I'm going to just find my location here, so I'm using those little toggle keys. Okay. And I'm getting my settings set up, so I'm going to be doing this at the 40%, so 400 for that S max, and it's going to run at 3,000 millimeters per second, so just the basic laser engrave default settings. And again, I'm going to focus this by just using that little block of aluminum. We'll see how long it takes before I lose that. Alright, so that looks like I've got a pretty good spot there, so I will reset the 0 before I tell it to go to make sure that that's where it's going to engrave from. And then we're going to go ahead and get this started. I've sped it up. It took about 3 minutes to engrave. It does get fumy, particularly the leather. That smelled worse than lumber. So I frequently would just use that little laser out on the back patio. But definitely, you see I opened the garage door here. You do want to have really good ventilation. I have several fans here blowing it, to the outdoors. Alright, so we'll take a look at this and see how it did. Notice that I'm wearing safety goggles. These green goggles came with the laser. You have to have them on at all times if you're in the same room with this laser. It doesn't matter if you're far away from it or close to it, you have to have them on. These lasers can certainly destroy your vision. I found another video that somebody had laser engraved on denim, so I wanted to see what would happen if I used some of this duck cloth, duck canvas. It's stuff I had laying around from making cornhole bags. So this is a dark blue, and it does say that it can only do dark materials. And I'm going to try a light material too, but spoiler alert, they weren't lying. But this canvas actually was kind of neat. I thought it was going to burn dark, and it actually just burns away the dark dye. So it's actually going to engrave it with a lighter color. So see, it's like a light gray, which really surprised me, and it's actually pretty cool. I might be able to make some really interesting things with that. So now I am going to try this light gray cloth, and we'll just kind of zip through this very quickly. And you'll see that, yes, it engraved it, but not to the extent that you'd really be able to see it. So now I'm going to try black duck cloth, and this was actually, I thought, a really interesting result. So the blue one kind of ended up with a gray underneath, and the black one here is going to end up with kind of a gold looking logo, which I thought was really interesting. I mentioned that my 15-watt laser struggled with getting a good engrave on some denser woods. So this is a piece of really dense curly maple. I ran one logo at the recommended settings for solid wood, which was the 3,000 millimeters per second at 80%. And it was a little light, so I ran another one at 100% power at 2,500 millimeters per second and got a really good result. So that's the lighter one. So I'm really thrilled to now have the confidence to be able to engrave in any of the lumbers that I frequently use. Here are just some pictures of the items that we have engraved so far, and next I'm just going to show you how you could actually take one of these little logos and be able to make it into a product for your business. So I picked up some brown leather and just gonna see what this looks like when I engrave it. So I'm gonna do my logo here. So this is the same laser engraving settings that I used on the previous leather for the engraved part. And then we're gonna go ahead and cut out this circle as well, and we'll see how that differs from engraving it. Okay, so I'm going to pull up the circle that I saved, so it'll be from the same 0 point. And this is where I'm using that center line setting. So if I didn't use center line, if I did it by lines or the dithering, like the dots of the logo, it would be going side to side and then just putting little bits of laser on each side to make the circle. By going center line, it's going to actually track around the circle in a much more efficient way of moving. And this is going to be at 100% power and 500 meters per second. So this is the default leather cutting settings. So I'm just checking it on each pass. So I ended up taking 5 passes total. It was almost completely cut out after 4, but after 5, it just popped right up. All right, so with this leather patch, I'm just going to apply a little bit of leather and suede glue to it and brush it out really nice and thin. Don't want any squeeze out on this, even though it dries clear. And then I'm just gonna make myself a little hat for my business. So just center and just press it on, hold it for a few seconds, and then it's gonna cure overnight and it'll be strong as ever. Here's just a few other little hats that I made. So, I think that really is an opportunity for these little lasers. If you really want a laser business, you're going to want to get a nice laser. But if you want to add a few specialty items within a different business that you already have, like in my case, it's woodworking, if I want to be able to customize cutting boards and stuff for people, this is really nice. And it's particularly nice to be able to just make little items that advertise my business without having to pay all the custom fees to get those types of items made for me. Well, this just scratches the surface of what you can do with one of these really inexpensive lasers. I hope that maybe this helped just make it seem a little bit less intimidating. And like and subscribe if you want more videos like this. And I hope that you have lots of success and stay well.